For painting that very bleak picture of the situation that we face. It scared me second only to Benny Morris's article. I think it was in January, right? In
that was just science fiction sort of, but okay.
And maybe a couple of episodes of 24. The question I wanted to ask is, I think that your notion of Israel as a healing place is comforting and soothing to some Jews. I'd say maybe most in this room and some others outside of the room. Not all, but I think that it's however Jews take it, it's not something that we can bring to the international community. I just don't think it's something that they would take seriously. For one thing, if they already have these notions of Israel as an oppressive state, kind of building off of what Rosella was saying before. In addition to that, what I think it does is it kind of turns back the clock like 200 to 250 years ago, and it starts asking the question about the Jewish question and the Jewish problem. Why is it that a Jew should be entitled to dual loyalties between, why can't they just be full-fledged citizens of our state? What is so special about this Jewish ideal in another country? I don't think that the international community has a full appreciation of this case that Jews need a place to develop Jewish thought. I don't know that they'll see the benefit in that.
Oh, I hear you. The French have a place to develop French culture. And the Germans have a place to develop German culture. And the Italian culture continues to flourish. Greek culture in a very different way continues to flourish. Chinese culture continues to flourish. Why should we be the only culture that's that deeply rooted in the history of the world that does not have a platform? That's one argument. That's one argument. Now, you raise a really important point, though. The question is really what's going to convince the world. And I think that, by the way, what we say to ourselves and we say to the world, and I say the same thing. What I say to the world is very simple. Israel was created by the United Nations. Has a right to exist. Like any other country has a right to exist. It's not the only country created by the United Nations. It's not a lot of conflict. But why are you guys all over us? What happened with Rwanda? Where were you guys with Rwanda? Hello? Mass raping and pillaging of millions of people. Nothing, if you took all of the people killed in the Israeli-Arab conflict from its very, very beginning. First of all, as an interesting little aside, it's less than the people killed in one day at Auschwitz. That's just it's irrelevant, but it's just an interesting statistic.
End of the war, the beginning of the war.
At Auschwitz's height. Okay? Okay, no, I didn't say to use that argument. But it also is dwarfed by the number of people killed in Rwanda, or the number of people who've been, massacred in Darfur. Which is not to say that it's okay here. It's to say what is your focus here. So the argument to the world is we have a right to exist like any other country has a right to exist. If India and Pakistan have rights to exist, if China has a right to exist despite what it says about Taiwan, if etc., 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 we have a right to exist. Now we should be held to high standards. We should be held to the same high standards that you hold everybody else. Because that's what normalcy is about. The decision that the world made it, it's done. Now, that's the outside world's argument. Then you have to have the argument with them on case-by-case basis. They want to know why you're still occupying the West Bank. Okay, fair question. So it's very simple, actually. 3 points I would make. It's not simple at all, obviously. But point one is, I would say, I personally hope that one day we won't. Number two, last time I read my history books, we actually won that land in a war that they started. That was Hussein's big mistake. It would have been much better to stay out of the war. You'd have Hezbollah. And remind me of what other country, sort of wins that kind of land and then just sort of returns it. Now it's hard to. Who keeps calling me? I don't know who that is. So that's one. And the third point is this: I think most Israelis, and I certainly include myself in this, and some of you may disagree, and that's totally fine, would love to get rid of that land. Would love to get rid of it, not tomorrow, but after preparation. To whom exactly? I think Israel has no options. The frustrating situation that Israel is in is it has no diplomatic options. It sees Hezbollah rearming in Lebanon. What are you going to do? Preemptive strike against them? That's going to go up real big. You've got Qassams coming down, from Gaza all the time. Aurel Rothstein, who is the principal of the high school in Shara Negev, which is the high school in that area, is a very good friend of ours. Just saw him a couple of days ago. If you knew what life was like, Sderot's a half-empty ghost town. Why? Because there's literally 13 and 14-year-old kids who are wetting their beds. because they're scared to death, scared to fall asleep. There are entire families where the kids, teenage kids, younger kids, are sleeping in their parents' bedrooms because kids are scared. He said, you've been to high schools, most of you went to one. Remember the hallways, remember the lockers? That's exactly how an Israeli high school is. Okay, lockers and hallways and narrow hallways and lots of kids and all that. It's exactly the same thing. Now the siren goes off. You have 30 seconds to get 1,500 children into bomb shelters. Where are 1,500 high school kids going in 30 seconds? And then the all clear goes off, and everybody goes back to their class, shaking, and the teacher's supposed to get up and teach calculus. You have kids who are afraid to be out of their parents' sight. You have parents who are afraid to go to work. You have parents who quit their jobs because they don't want to go to work. You have people who've fled the city and moved to Tel Aviv, closed down their businesses, which led to the unemployment of everybody else. I mean, you have a city that is entirely not functioning. Now, you give back the West Bank, and those Qassams make it into the West Bank, which are in range of the airport, and in range of Tel Aviv, and in range of Jerusalem. Then what are you going to do? Say, oops, we made a mistake? Then what, we're going to take it back, send tanks rolling right back in? This is what Israel's up against. So it's very easy to say, yeah, Israel ought to get, I think Israel ought to get out of the West Bank. Yeah, I don't want my kid going in there in a year and being at a checkpoint or barging into some person's house in the middle of the night and arresting them. It's a shitty thing for Jewish people to do. I grant you that. It's terrible. So give me, I'm saying to myself, an alternative right now. Now, did Israel handle Fatah as best as it could? Did it really boost up Abu Mazen as best as it could? I don't know. I know that Fatah was founded by Arafat. I know that Arafat turned down the deal. Because I think at the end of the day, he was much more comfortable with being a revolutionary than being a statesman. The amazing thing about David Ben-Gurion is that he could make the switch. I mean, David Ben-Gurion is a much underappreciated person because everybody knows the pithy little things that he said and did that weren't so nice and neat. But David Ben-Gurion started as a revolutionary, built the Haganah, got rid of the British, and then when the time came, became a statesman. It's an extraordinary thing to have done. A number of other people have done it. I mean, sort of Mao Zedong sort of did it a little bit, maybe. But, I mean, he was an extraordinary person. They haven't had that extraordinary person yet. They have not had yet their Altalena, right? The Altalena when David Ben-Gurion ordered a young guy, not a general, to fire on a boat. His name was Yitzhak Rabin. He was 24 years old. He said, sink the boat. Because another guy, Menachem Begin, said, these arms are going to my fighters in Jerusalem, which you Ben-Gurion are not defending. So my fighters will defend Jerusalem, you do your thing. And Ben-Gurion said, excuse me, sir, there is a stake here. There's one army. And if you do not give me that ship, I will sink it. And Begin said, I'm not going to give you my ship. So Ben-Gurion turned to this 24-year-old kid named Yitzhak Rabin, and he said, sink the ship. And he did. Blew it out of the water. Bomb. It exploded. It was full of armaments. It exploded sky high. Ben-Gurion was an unbelievable person. They haven't had their Altalena. They haven't had the moment where they say, we're going to be one people under the rule of law. Now, the minute that they could do that, yeah, I want to get back to West Bank. So my point is that these are complicated questions. I hate the fact that we're in there. But I also hated the fact that we were in Gaza, and I voted for Sharon, knowing that he was going to get out of Gaza. I mean, I was a huge blue and white ribbon guy. I'd say that with some degree of... you're probably wrong. You're probably wrong. The people that I know who live there, who are living now in these caravans, lives have been destroyed. Lives have really been destroyed. I don't give that any reasons. The lives have been destroyed. And if their lives had been destroyed and it had brought about a Palestinian state and some peace, and my son didn't have to go off to war, I'd say to them, conflicts have victims, have costs, and I feel terrible. But now I can't even look them in the eye because we got Qassams. We got Sderot being a ghost town. And we got 14-year-old kids wetting their beds. And we got parents that can't sleep in a room by themselves because all their kids are sleeping at the foot of the bed for the last year. And we got a government that we have a government that has completely abdicated responsibility for them. Completely abdicated responsibility. Imagine missiles coming over from Canada onto Buffalo, New York, and the United States for a year not really doing anything. Imagine it. Impossible. The United States would level Canada. It would. It would, and it wouldn't give a damn what the world thought. Right? Now you could say, well, we would put Palestinian people. Yeah, I don't want Palestinian people to suffer, but what would happen if we turned off all the water and all the electricity? Which we can do easily because it all comes through our grid. We said it's off for 3 days. Then we're going to turn it back on. Then the next time the Qassam hits, it's going to be off for 10 days. And you guys decide. Now, the world's not going to like that. And people are going to die because hospitals need electricity, hospitals need water, and babies die if they can't get hydrated. I understand. I took biology. But the question is, what are you going to do? Now, I'm not advocating that. I mean, I'm really not. I'm talking out of my mouth. But I don't know what to do. And neither does the government. I said that the government has advocated these people. And so before I vote in the next election, which should be any day now, but unfortunately won't be, right? Before I vote in the next election and say, yeah, give back the West Bankers, who wants to occupy them, I'm going to look at Gaza. Say, how well did that go?